I call this special meeting of the Carrollton-Farmers Branch ISD Board of Trustees to order at 11:03 a.m. on March the 8th, 2018. As a district, we dedicate all our efforts and resources to our goal of high achievement for each student. The board uses this goal to guide all deliberations, decisions, and actions. For the record, all board members are present with the exception of Mr. Fleming. We do constitute a quorum and can conduct business on behalf of the district. As required by board policy BBD local, let the minutes reflect that all board members have received or exceeded the continuing education training hours required for 2017. We will now proceed with agenda item number 2, presentation by Texas Association of School Board concerning superintendent search. Texas School Board Services to assist the Board of Trustees in hiring of new superintendent of schools. Now, before we begin, gentlemen, thank you for agreeing to meet with us today. For the record, please state your name, introduce any other representative joining you, and you may proceed with your presentation.
Thank you, Mr. President. I want to first of all introduce myself. My name is Robert Duran. I'm Associate Executive Director for Governance Services within the Texas Association of School Board. I'm in my 5th year there. Former superintendent in 2 different districts, was superintendent for 10 years and 33 years in public schools. I want to thank you for the consideration of TASB of the possibility of doing this search. I want to, express, well, obviously it's not good news that you're losing Dr. Burns, your superintendent that's been here a while and done good work, but the good news, and something you probably need to be reminded of, is that Carrollton-Farmers Branch is a very attractive district. The quality of life here is going to attract a lot of really good candidates, so you should really celebrate that. And that's really something that's very positive. And my comments are going to be brief, and I may be stepping a little bit on what Mr. Felton is going to present to you. But one of the things I want to really point out that we, for some reason, have got a reputation for, and that is that we pretty much guide the board, and that's not even the right word. We have a lot of control over how the board will run these search. But please, if you hear nothing else, listen to this: that we allow you complete control over the search. We give you options, and we serve as consultants. But boards do searches different ways. Some would like to see the top candidates. Some want to see all the candidates that apply. So that's just one example of the flexibility that you're going to be provided in this search. You know, our goal is to make it the only difficult thing we want about the search is that you have 3 or 4, whatever you decide again, of really top candidates. That should be your toughest choice. But we want to mitigate any kind of drama that's involved, any mistakes that can be made. And Mr. Feltner here and his team, we do a really good job, I think, of in experiencing. As we're like that insurance group, we know a lot because we've seen a lot. We do a lot of searches. So we can help with that. And again, once you hear from Mr. Feltner, you'll see that you have a lot of options. And again, I don't want to preclude any of your questions, but we're certainly going to be open to that. And I'll just turn it over to Mr. Feltner, but thanks again for having us. And I'll be here to answer any questions you might have as well.
Well, it's good to be back. As I was stating earlier, I didn't even have to use my GPS to get over here. I knew exactly where to go. And but it is kind of a bittersweet moment, and did the last search. And so it was a great experience. Nancy was with us during that time, and but for the folks that are new to this service, a little bit about me. I've been with TASB now a little over 11 years and have conducted about 138 superintendent searches, one being this one. And so been around the state a little while and traveling. We were discussing earlier, as Randy was mentioning, that we travel and meet lots of people and things like that. So crisscrossing the state, you meet a lot of board members and you meet a lot of people and things like that. But it is good to be back here with you once again. As Dr. Duran said, our process is pretty much the same as it was. We've tweaked it some over the years, but as he said, you are in charge of the search. And as you know very well, this is going to be the most important decision that you're going to make in quite some time. So we want to get it right, and you want to get it right, and we want to make sure that you get it right. So that's what we're here for you. We're with you through the whole search. We help you. We're kind of the guide on the side, or the coach on the sideline, if you will, to help you get through the entire process. You have options, as Dr. Ron said, throughout the whole search process. One being what we did the last time we were crisscrossing this district in our profile sessions, where we come in and have live meetings with folks, and we sit down and we listen to folks. Over the course of the years, we found out that that's kind of dwindling down in numbers that are actually coming. In fact, even we saw that when we were here, the live meetings were not as robust as, as the online thing. But over the years, we found out the online survey, which is basically the same thing, is getting a lot more speed and fuel, and folks are utilizing that more than actually taking the time to come to a meeting and sitting down with us. And, people's schedules are so crazy these days, and so, but we have those options available for you if you so choose. It's whatever you want to do. The online survey, 100% of our districts use the online survey, so it's always there, and we roll that even if we have the live sessions as well, so they're both can run concurrently. We are not in the business of finding a superintendent a job. What we're in the business for is assisting the school board selecting the best superintendent. That's two different views. I mean, there are groups out there that will want to help one of their buddies find a position, but yet that's not what we do. And I think from the last time you realized that what we are interested in is you getting the best possible superintendent out there. Now, that's not to say that we don't have a great deal of candidates that apply through us, and the reason is they trust our process because of the confidentiality of our process. That's not getting back home to the home district and causing trouble there. So we really stress the confidentiality of our search process. And Nancy, if you remember the last time, we signed a confidentiality agreement, which means once you receive and see the information of the candidates, you'll not divulge that to anybody until Gabriel blows his horn, and you know when that is. So that's what we want, except the one person, of course. So you're with us through this whole process. You get the whole team. It's not just, you'll see one time and one another time. You'll get the whole team that's going to be a part of this whole search process. And so we're here with you from the get-go. The average superintendent search runs about 120 calendar days. So that's about how long it plays itself out. Now, that's from the planning meeting to the vote to hire date. Okay? So about 120 calendar days. We advertise this position both in-state, Texas ISD, Tassonet, and on our website, but also our sister organizations around the U.S. pick up our search as well. So it's very, very common that you're going to get out-of-state applicants for this position since it's such a high-profile location. So, just be aware of that. And we will walk you through that because there's some certification issues that go along with out-of-state applicants and those types of things, but we can bring that knowledge to you and share that information at the appropriate time about those. But the net is cast very wide through us, and so we have the resources. I fortunately had the opportunity of being the past president of the National Affiliation of Superintendent Searchers, so I have colleagues all across the United States that if somebody does apply from out of state, that I simply call them because they're doing the same thing I do, and they're going out and they're in the school districts and things like that. But in-state, the fortunate thing about us, we do have our field service reps. Mr. William Smith calls on your district, and they are in every district in the state, usually 3 to 4 times a year, and visiting with folks in there. So they pick up a great deal of knowledge going into these school districts. So we have a professional working knowledge of pretty much a lot of the superintendents in the state of Texas, and some of even assistant supes. So that's one of the things that we take advantage of with that. So when it comes down time and we finished all the profiling and things like that, then we get into the interviews. We come down and what's different, Nancy, from last time to this time, we did use a CD disc last time, but we've gone away from that. So now we're at strictly email. So everything's electronic now. So it all comes, applicants apply to us via an electronic application. They upload everything into the system. And then at the appropriate time, we send you an email that contains the applicant's information and then how it's disaggregated inside those emails and what comes to us and things like that. So that's how you get the applicant information. And we can go into more detail about that at a different time if you so choose, but that's pretty much how it plays itself out. We start the application deadline date, then you receive the applicant's information, and then after that, then we come back and sit down with you and we visit about the applicants that you would like to visit about. The last time we were here, the board wanted to look at all the applicants, and so we put them all on the board. Dr. Burns being one of them. Of course, we didn't have to spend much time with him because the board pretty much knew him and how things were working there. But the other candidates that applied, we did spend some time with and go over some in detail about the applicants and things like that. And then you select the ones that you want to bring in for interview. We don't select, we offer our information that we will have for you per every candidate, and then you select based on whatever information that we provide you and that information that you have, which ones you want to bring in for your first round of interviews. And so usually we start off with 6 on the first round. That can vary depending on the number that we get to. Then after that, you have your first round of interviews, and then after those interviews, then we come back and sit down with you and you say, okay, if it was 6, then 3 are going away. We want to invite 3 back. And then we discuss how that process plays out. Usually, we will have a social at the front end of that, and that can be, and I think the last time was a pretty nice dinner. I think there was a, yes, exactly. It was a spouse and things in the dinner. I think we had it at a hotel, if I recall correctly. And so it was a pretty nice thing. And now in our smaller districts, they get just potato chips and a little bitty sandwich. So, but here it was an elaborate, pretty nice dinner. So it was well. And Dr. Burns, I'm going to just digress here. Frank, who was on your board, was a great guy, always gave me a hard time, if you remember that. One of the things, to this day I remember, he said, you think we can all have a glass of wine and we can see if a candidate picks up the wine or not? And I went, Frank, give me a break. Come on, man. He was a great guy. Sure disappointed and sure hurt to see his passing. So anyway, but we had a good time with him. But anyway, it was a great opportunity. So we had the second round, and the board visited with the candidates on the second round, and as Nancy said, the spouse do attend that. So after that, then you decide if you want to take a site visit. Obviously, with Dr. Burns, there was no site visit involved, and but then we moved from the site visit to what we call the lone finalist, and that's where you come out and name the candidate, and it becomes public at that time. We have to wait the 21 mandated days, and then you have the culmination of vote to hire at that point. And that's pretty much how the process works. And all this time, we're doing a lot of legwork behind the scenes that you're not going to be seeing, but we're going to keep you informed of how this thing progresses down the trail and things like that. But we do this all the time, 7 days a week sometimes. And so it's, we're here with you through the whole process. One of the value things that I consider that it's very important. When you pay the fee, it doesn't go to Dr. Duran or or vacation or something like that. Although that would be nice. It goes back to support Texas public schools. And we feel like that's important right now because public education is under attack, if you know. And we need strong advocates in Austin supporting Texas public education, and that's what we're all about. So that's where the money goes, and doesn't go to our pockets or anything. So that's why we feel like that's a value-added difference that we offer. So, Mr. President, in a nutshell, that's pretty much our presentation, and we can answer any questions you might have.
Thank you. Let me swallow here. Board members, do you have any questions at this time? Ms. Klein?
So how do you conduct the first cast net into the superintendent world while also soliciting community input? Is it simultaneously happening?
Pretty much, Ms. Klein, it's pretty much done at the same time. Once you hire us, the application goes live, so everything's open at that point, so candidates can actually upload all their information into the system, and it sits there. But we have something called our qualifications and characteristics, which you determine if we come back and meet with you based on the community input, and that be it online or live, and we say, based on what we're hearing, this is what your district seems to be looking for in the next superintendent. And then you approve those, and once those are approved by you, they go inside the application document. And every candidate must write a narrative based on what you're looking for. So it gives you information about their career and how it's applicable to what you're looking for in the superintendent. But it's all going on at the same time.
Mr. Bocci?
Thank you. So after that, if you have the simultaneous first round, I guess, of applicants, and then after the community input and our input is finalized, if you're starting to see, what we're looking for, do you reach out and contact specific people that might already be placed, thinking they could be a good fit, or do you just wait for people to come to you, application, online?
All of us?
Yeah.
That's a good question. We do recruit. If we see and start hearing some of the things that we feel like an applicant or superintendent out there exhibits some of these qualities that we feel like would be great attributes for this district, then we're going to reach out to them. Now,
Okay.
one thing that we do not do is that we do not strong-arm any superintendent. What we do is say, based on what we're hearing and seeing, we feel like you would be a good candidate for this district. Now, we would encourage you to take a look at it, but if you choose not to, that's perfectly all right, but we certainly would like for you to at least take a look at it. But also, there are others that are applying at the same time, as well as we're recruiting.
Yeah, I'd like to add to that. I mean, as a former superintendent, there were, especially toward the latter end of my tenure in San Antonio, there were just certain districts that I really would have just considered and would not have expressed that to anyone other than maybe a search firm to keep it extremely confidential. So, yeah, people do approach us at conferences or call me or Butch on my phone and say, look, I'm not looking aggressively, but if this profile comes up, I would be interested, and that's one point. So, yeah, we do have that, but we will call them as a way of recruiting and say this profile district is open for you. You probably should look at it. And then second, when you think about it, you're really wanting candidates whose communities would really hate to see them leave. So that's why they don't openly express that, to just anyone. So, yeah, I mean, I think we've gained the trust of a lot of the superintendents and assistant superintendents that are ready to make that move. So it's a combination of recruiting and to see who responds, obviously from people that we may not know as well.
Okay, thank you.
Ms. Ramos?
You mentioned earlier during the presentation that there's a couple different ways to structure it, whether we can see all of the applicants or maybe present 10. For a district of this size, in your experience, just roughly what do you estimate all of the applicants might be? I know it's hard to guess, but just a ballpark figure.
I'm guessing between right now 50 to 60 applicants. Now, out of that 50 to 60, probably only about 35 are going to be highly qualified.
Okay.
And that's pretty much the way it was the last time, except I'm not sure there were 35, there were more like 25 that were highly qualified. And so, you know, it did, recall, Nancy, the last time we did this, it was a good, you know, a good group, and it was a strong, very strong group. And of course, Dr. Burns emerged to be the best one out of that group, which I think the board made a wise decision at that point. And obviously, over the tenure of the years, I think he's done well. And, but that's kind of a rough ballpark.
Mr. Shackman.
Actually, a couple of questions. First, how and when do you recommend that we establish basic parameters? You know, if as a board, we think we have to have a candidate who has blue eyes, at what point in time do we get that into the process? And secondly, how do we, or you in your process, target audiences for the online and other communication? Because it gets really significant how we're targeting to get input.
What we recommend and what we did the last time through this process, if you remember Dr. Ben Canada, who was with us no longer, and, but he met with each individual board member and visited with folks. And we can certainly do that, and Dr. Duran would be the one that would be doing that. You as each individual board member sharing with him, what are you looking for in the characteristics for your next superintendent? But generally, we all will, you know, look at the online survey and different things like that. But based on all that and your input into this, that's how we establish those parameters of what, you know, we feel like the district's looking for. Now, we bring those back to you to make sure that, yes, you can live with this. Now, what we don't do is we don't get down to the point of saying you have to have blue eyes. But what we do is say we want someone that's exceptional communicator, and we kind of carry that verse out, if you will. And so out of that, when they read those key words, those words that in there that kind of are operational, they will respond to that on how they, for example, this is how I communicate not only to the board, but to the district, to the community, so forth and so on. And that's what we're wanting them to do. We don't want to spoon feed them so much that they just say yes to every one of them, you know what I mean? And so we're wanting them to be able to share what they do. So what we're finding out over the years is that the resume that they provide and their responses to the qualifications and characteristics in narrative form are what most board members spend their time with reading and looking at.
You also, just to add to that, you also asked how we get the word out. We would work very closely with your communications department to make sure the schools are informed, however they may have robocalls, you know, for the community meetings. If we have those, we may want to post some of those things in some of your publications or maybe in the media here. The key, I mean, a lot of boards choose to do all they can to give the community an opportunity for input so that they can say, so that you can say, we gave you the opportunity. Again, as Butch mentioned earlier, those numbers are going down because people can do that online. And secondly, what we have found is that there's about 85% overlap on the characteristic of a superintendent, no matter what community you get into, a people person, maybe even sense of humor, maybe experience in administration, et cetera. And so a lot of those, again, have a lot of overlap, but at least you've given the community an opportunity to provide input. And then last, I just want to mention to kind of let you know that I've said in that seat and also now that I'm working with the searches, is that really the board, they have that same desire for that profile that the community is wanting and needing, but you all work at the superintendent at a different level. So that's why it's nice to meet with each one of you and say what sort of a trend that's happening with the board, because you're the ones working with the superintendent representing the community. So I think that's an important distinction as well. And we listen to both.
I was going to ask you what kind of, what are some of the typical questions you would ask the community in the survey to come back with?
That's a good question. It's a standardized survey. We ask, what are the current strengths of the district? What would you say are the issues and concerns facing the district? And then what professional and personal characteristics are you looking for in the next superintendent? So that's the same questions, and the reason we ask the same questions is because we want to see all the responses, so everything's apples to apples, if you will. Now, one thing that we do is that we provide you back a report of every comment that we've received. So you're going to see all the comments that are out there. Now, there are no names attached to this. It's all anonymous, but at least you get the information of what the comments that have come into us. The online survey is attached to your district's website. And so it's not attached, they don't have to come to our website, they just look on your website, and once they hit the link, it takes them into our system, so no one in this district has access to being able to see what other folks have inputted into that particular survey. So it makes it a nice thing, so folks feel more comfortable about opening up and sharing. And that's what we have found over the years, is that folks would rather write and at their office or their business or on their phone at lunch or something like that, respond to the survey rather than spending the time of coming up, because they can say the same thing. The survey, the online survey and the live session, the questions are all the same.
You're going to also, in those meetings, we try to guide them to say, you know, there's not a specific issue. We're looking for the characteristics of a superintendent. Because if you've ever been to a community meeting, you get everything from, I want buses, give me somebody here who can get the buses on time, to fix the special ed department, whatever that is. It's important, though, that those community members can see that their comments, regardless if they're relevant or not, were at least shared with you. And that's key.
Ms. Valenzuela?
What languages are the surveys available in?
English and Spanish.
I'm sorry, Nancy, go ahead. Ms. Klein?
I had this recollection that last time we said we weren't interested in outside Texas. Do you remember if we were or weren't?
I think
Or
that
maybe it's
was,
the way we screened?
I think that was something that we talked about inside the meeting. I don't know that there was something that we precluded, you know, ahead of the meeting. I think it's once we got inside when we were talking about the candidates and board members began to express that, well, we're not really interested in someone from outside Texas. But,
Thank
you know, Nancy, I'm sorry.
I think you're probably right. I think the conversation was that our state is different enough, but I think we cast the net over everybody, but we were particularly looking for Texas experience, because there are some former Texas superintendents outside of Texas.
That's correct, correct.
And what kind of background checks do y'all perform on the candidates? How
Criminal,
extensive, I guess.
criminal is, we don't do criminal checks, because every public school official in the state of Texas or employee already has gone through a more extensive criminal background check than we can even provide. So that's already done. We do limited background checks in the fact that we don't just call their references, because frankly, who's going to put somebody on their reference sheet that's going to say something bad about them? So what we do is that we try to check in behind them and see what they've done over the years. And of course, we look at the Google stuff and everything like that. Of course, you know, you have to kind of balance that in the blogs and things like that. So we do a lot of background work behind, you know, the candidates, and because sometimes in the current role that they're in, you know, believe it or not, there's some folks that say, yeah, they're great, and we just want to get them out the door. And so that's why we do a lot of things behind that person to make sure that we're getting their substance behind that, than rather than just hearing what we're hearing right now. Does that make sense?
So in other words, you check references outside of those that the candidates listed?
That is correct.
Okay.
Yeah, we spend a little time with the references they've listed, but we spend a lot more time behind ones that they haven't listed.
There you go. Any other questions, board members? Yes, ma'am.
Thank you.
Ms. Verbracek?
So let's talk about the timelines of this. We have a milestone on our calendar of a departure date, and I'm just interested to know what's the length of time you feel gives a board, a community, yourselves enough time to gauge and review and make these decisions.
You've got one coming to you right now. This would be only a framework. There's nothing written in stone about this at all. And, you know,
you.
once we get, once, if you decide to hire us, then we come and we will massage this to what you would like for it to look like. Like I said, you're in charge of this whole process, and this is just information for you.
Can I continue?
Yes. Go ahead.
So in your past searches, is this a rushed timeline for this kind of search and this size of district? Is this quick? Do you think this gives adequate consideration and time? You're comfortable?
It's actually more than adequate, and the reason for that is because we have at least from today to the application deadline date in April. It gives the candidates plenty of time to see that we're not rushing through this. If this was like a 2-week turnaround on the application deadline date, which we have done before, we get calls and saying, apparently must be somebody inside that they're promoting because that's pretty short. I said, no, it's not. But, we have to do that. But the longer, the application deadline date is, the more, it gives candidates a little bit more of a comfortable feeling that they have adequate time, and this is not something that we're just putting a facade. And 99% of the time, districts that use TASB, they understand that it's open to anybody. Now, I will tell you this, we don't discuss candidates. If we get a call from someone, which we do frequently, are they looking at an internal candidate? We tell them, we don't talk about candidates. But what we do talk about is that if you do not apply, you will not be considered. So it's whatever
There you go.
Can't win the lottery if you don't buy a ticket.
Yeah, so it's pretty much, that's the way it works and things like that. But no, again, this is just a framework. This can go as long or short as you want it to go. And it's kind of a general, but it captures about the 120 days if you kind of play it out.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions, board members? Okay, hearing none and seeing none. Our next agenda item, number 3, is to consider and take possible action to retain a superintendent search firm. Now, gentlemen, I would respectfully like to ask you to step out for just a few minutes while we deliberate amongst ourselves.
Did we hear from them what the cost is? Or do we have that information?
That's a good question. The cost, it always comes up.
I hate to be that way, but
Yeah, no, I totally understand. It actually, from the last time we did this, we reduced the cost down to $14,500.
okay.
Now, that includes everything except 2 things, and here are the exceptions. 100% of our districts pay for the candidates to come back on the second round. Now, I remember last time, this district paid for first and second round for the applicants. But on the second round, 100% of our districts pay for the candidates to come back because you're inviting them back here. It also does not include board members if they take a site visit to the candidate's home district, and that would involve 3 board members only. And so it doesn't cover that. Everything else is inside that 1 fee.
Thank you.
It would also not cover the dinner at the hotel.
That is correct.
Okay.
That is correct. It would not cover the dinner at the hotel.
Yeah, it was chicken.
Was it chicken or roast? I think there were 3 different nights, so it was something different every night. So I think it was the hotel roast beef.
So,
Anyway, okay.
So
Thank you.
that answer it?
Yeah.
Thank you. Okay. All righty, folks, this is just an informal discussion. If anybody has anything they'd like to talk about or say.
Going to be.
Beg pardon?
It's less than what I thought it was going to be to do the
Yeah.
candidate search.
Yeah.
It sounds very thorough. I like the fact that they do this on a regular, all-the-time basis. There are some of the firms out there that, as you start trying to research them on the website, you kind of get the sense that they do it sporadically when it comes up. They're law firms or they're whatever types of firms, and they have this on the side. This
I agree.
feels like they are more engaged in this process on a regular basis.
That's a good point. Ms. Bocci?
Thank you.
Tara, this is informal. Tara?
I think I like the idea that it's a former superintendent and their connection, I guess, their network. And, you know, and I would hope that a lot of those are also personal relationships, that they know people within the education community, have feedback already. I mean, I think I like that.
Ms. Klein?
I like the confidentiality provided, because I think you get better candidates if they're feeling secure
Yes.
that their home district won't hear.
Especially if we have to sign off on this document.
Yeah.
Correct.
For me personally, and this is important to me in just about anything, I trust these guys. I trust them, I trust what they do. That's a big deal to me. Richard, you got something?
Yeah, I think the most important thing is that they have access to quality talent. I mean, this is TASB, so it's nothing brand new for them, it's what they do. And so that gives me the confidence and their abilities and their confidence in reaching out to qualified candidates and knowing what a qualified candidate looks like.
James?
I'm actually very happy that they're soliciting individual input from each board member, sitting down with each of us and getting a feel for what we're looking for.
That's good, because we are a team of individuals. Yes, Tara?
So Dr. Burns, having gone through it with this group as a candidate, were you comfortable dealing with them?
Yes, and I will say, the written application is thorough. It is very thorough. It wasn't quite like a dissertation, but it was pretty close. But yeah, I think they vet both the interest and the follow-through in that interest with the written piece, so that you know if they've taken the time to do that, then there's some investment already, right? And I do believe that that's a vital step in their process, is they make you fill out that narrative questionnaire about your interests and your strengths and what you can bring. I think that's valuable information when you go to read, that you'll have some background from them, not just a resume, right? If you have a resume, that's pretty generic, but you have some insight.
Did you feel that was anything invasive about what they did during the last process with you as a candidate?
No, and I think, of course, my situation being a little different, being internal, I don't know that it was a secret anywhere that I was interested in applying.
Right.
But from the outside, I knew no one else that had applied at the time. They really did not share that. So I think that is an important part of the process, is they don't make that public, right?
So you didn't know any? No,
I didn't know any other
We
applicant.
didn't tell any, I mean, we
Nobody
kept our
told me,
lips
and
sealed.
yeah, I didn't know. I think the community knew that I was an applicant, just simply
Right.
by that nature of it, but no one else did they know.
Did they
Yes.
contact you later with other positions you could have applied for, or did they leave you alone after they placed you?
No,
Yeah.
they did not. You know, I do get letters frequently from other services, because I think that's just a part of being in this role, that I would get it periodically, but never solicited by TASB for any other position after this one.
And
Now, maybe that would have
actually,
been different
aren't
if I would
those-
expressed interest that they may have, but I,
Don't some of the search firms require a fee for a superintendent to be listed?
yes, there are some that are kind of both, I guess, the board's client as well as the superintendent in interest client, in that you would pay the fee to them to go find you positions that they'll get you an application for, or groom you a little bit, I would say, in coaching you for those, and get your name out there because you put your name with them. I never did that, but I know they're out there.
Anything else, board members? Okay, next question. Does the board have any questions for legal counsel that would require us to go into closed session by phone? Hearing none, seeing none. The next agenda item is marked for possible action. Bring, we need them back in here.
I think we were on 3.
Threes are considered take possible action.
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know why. Didn't mean to say
Well,
that.
it seems like if I'm feeling the consensus of my colleagues, I think we are all impressed and would be willing at this point, and I guess maybe that's where I would suggest that you poll each of us to see, because if we're all comfortable with this, then.
We're fixing to have a motion and
Yeah, then when we
vote.
come back into session, that we would make the motion and go forward with hiring.
So you're saying we should go into closed session?
I think we're okay.
I think we're fine.
Yeah, I don't think you have it listed. I think Laura put there is just as, if there was an emergency or some kind,
Yeah.
if
Yeah,
you
no,
needed to.
I don't think we need to go into
Yeah.
closed session,
No.
but before we make a motion, I would suggest that we confirm that everybody is feeling the same way. I think that we all are.
I think our discussion
Yeah.
proved that a while ago.
Perfect,
Yeah.
okay. If we're all comfortable there, which I felt like we were, but,
Yeah, I think
Okay.
so.
Just trying to figure out if it's the heater or the AC, I feel.
I think it's both.
I think
I think one's in one part of the room and the other's in the other.
Are they connected?
All righty, ladies and gentlemen, our next item, this item is an action item. Do I have a motion? Mr. Boccic?
I move that the board retain the services of TASB Executive Search Services for purposes of assisting the district in conducting the search for its next superintendent of schools, and authorize the board president to sign all necessary documents to retain such services.
I have a motion from Ms. Boccic. Do I have a second? I have a second from Ms. Valenzuela. All those in favor, raise your hands.
Discussion.
Pardon me before we raise our hand. I'll do this, why do I do this all the time, Randy?
Just do.
Would you sit me down and talk to me about this? Anyway, do we have any discussion about this?
I think we've had our discussion. and
Yeah, I think we
that
have
we're-
too. But that's not why I left it out. I just left it out because that's what I do. Okay. Hearing none and seeing none, all those in favor, raise your hand. That vote is unanimous. Congratulations, gentlemen. Thank you. Now, having chosen to retain the services of TASB ESS, the next agenda item is number 4, consultation with superintendent search firm regarding planning for superintendent search. What should we do?
You have the proposed timeline in front of you. You have the proposed timeline in front of you, and again, this is certainly, as I said, nothing that's in concrete, but it's just kind of a guide. Obviously, today is the first one. If you choose to do just the online survey, we would be back with you at the end of the month to go over what, provide you the report. Now, what we do with that is that we would send the report to you prior to that evening of coming to visit with you. And so you're seeing the report and the qualifications and characteristics that we've come up with, but we would, at that meeting, then tweak the Q&Cs how you would want them to read. Prior to that, all the online survey information would be rolling. Dr. Duran would have already visited with each of you before that date, and then all that would be collected in a report. So that would be, now if we have the profile, if we want the live profile sessions, then what we're most likely going to do is we'll probably have to bump that June 7th date out a little further. And, which would be, instead of the 7th, it would probably be about the 20th or something like that, if we did the live sessions. And the reason for that is because we want to give enough time for the word to get out, so folks would know that we're going to be here and when we're going to be here and where we're going to be. So we would have to work a little bit more in detail with your communications department and how to get the word out and things like that. So it would move that vote to hire date out just a little bit if you choose to do the live sessions. And that's strictly up to you.
Carol, about you?
Thank you. In those live sessions, when you've done them before, are those sessions that board members typically attend, or is it your recommendation that we stay separate from those, from attending those?
We have found over the time that the board members do not attend the live sessions. In fact, we had that discussion when this before, and board members did not attend, and in the districts that we do have live sessions in, the board members do not attend. Folks tend to feel more comfortable about talking when, they know that maybe a board member is not in the room or things like that. Now, some people don't mind talking whether you're here or you're not, but generally, board members don't show up to those meetings because you're going to have your own one-on-one, if you will.
Mr.
I mean,
Matthews.
we're not gonna run you off if you show up. If you show up, that's fine.
I would also add that we would share with the community that all the board members will see all of the responses. So that gives the community an understanding that, because some board members some community members may ask, it'd be nice if a board member were here. And we will not cover you, but we'll share with them, well, we think it allows you the opportunity to speak more freely. However, all comments made tonight are going to be shared with all school board members.
Carol?
Keep going. Could I go?
Yeah.
I've been ahead of you, sorry. So I don't know how y'all feel. Of course, I like the online option. I mean, for me personally, that's best, but I also enjoy a community interaction. And I think I would be in favor of a live session for the option for, not multiple, but maybe a single one, just so that those who might not be comfortable with the online process could attend in person and maybe get a better sense that their comments are being heard.
Sure.
I don't know how y'all feel.
I have an observation.
Yes.
Ms. Klein?
I was going to talk to the schedule because I know we're wanting to place this position sooner than later. But what I was going to point out is the vote to name the finalist, which is May 16th, is really the decision. And waiting 2 weeks or so to be able to have the live collection of information wouldn't push us past key dates of what we're trying to meet necessarily. So, leave. So, so I think that we could still, and I think, I don't want to just do Carrollton and Farmers Branch. I'd like to have something in Irving, but maybe 3 and 2 evenings or something, or, however that can work. But have an opportunity for that public input, I think is good, maybe at the senior center.
Well, I wrote that, exactly my idea.
But just
Exactly my
seeing
idea.
if we could still do it both ways and still meet a schedule.
Is there a way to tweak it where we could still try to meet this June 7th day? Because I think it is important to have the community input.
Well, I think the June 7th, the vote to hire is we're not going to say a formality, but it's 21 days after the vote to name finalists or around that. And it's just a legal requirement. It allows you to find out if there's really some convicted felony you missed or something. And I think that if you were here for the vote to name the finalists, it would relieve you if you weren't here of the vote to hire.
True.
It would not be a shirking your duties.
Yeah, that's all really good input. Actually, just to kind of bring for you to be mindful of something, and maybe Mr. Feltner said this, that the two most important on that, you can put a star by those, are the 6 days for interview that really you need to mark the date on your calendar, and we need to confirm that those dates are good for all of you all. Now, there are emergencies that happen, but even, if you will, it's more important to, that all 7 of you hear all of the applicants than it is for all 7 of you to be here when you vote, if that makes any sense. In other words, you could cover one of your board members and say that Mr. Fleming's not here because of an emergency, but otherwise, we may have had his endorsement of our selection tonight, et cetera, et cetera. That's different than missing an interview, so just think about that. I think, back to President Matthews' question, what's next, I think, which would be to confirm those dates that there are really good for you all. So just keep that in mind. And by the way, there are circumstances where you might not, life happens, you might not be able to make one of those interviews, and that's okay, but I think those are important dates.
Yeah, absolutely.
The last time we did, we were primarily in the Carrollton-Farmers branch area, but we also were in Irving. I know it's a couple of the campuses over there. We were in that area doing the profile. Now, what we can do is that because of the team that we can bring in, we can be in 3 or 4 different locations in one night. And so we can satisfy that. So that's not an issue. Thus, we wouldn't be bumping out the date any. We could just all be here on one night, and we could get everything on one night.
Yeah, and you do want to give community members options too, as well, proximity, things like that.
But I would recommend we do that probably after your spring break and not during your spring break, because that might look like a setup
that's
deal.
next week.
We had this when nobody was here, so.
Right, yeah. Anything else, board members? All right, agenda item number 5 is an action item, and that is to consider and take possible action regarding superintendent search. There is a motion.
Can we just decline to do anything?
How does that work for you?
Mr. Matthews, if I might add, I know that might have been a jest, but I totally agree with what Ms. Klein said. All of our districts now, what we're doing is just agreeing that we're going to operate from this timeline. That way, we don't have to come back and switch a time or a date or something like that and have a formal meeting. You can give me a call and say, hey, the board can't meet this time. Can we just tweak?
Can we just agree
I
to the
think
framework?
I
Yes.
think this motion that's about to be made is simply a motion to tell y'all to proceed.
Oh, okay, I'm sorry. My bad.
I'm just saying. Mr. Butcher, you got a motion?
Why, I do. I move that the board authorize TASB ESS to proceed as discussed.
I have a motion from Mr. Boccic. Do I have a second? Have a second from Mr. Shackman. Any discussion? All those in favor, raise your hand. That vote is unanimous. All righty. I believe that has brought us, yes, Mr. Shackman.
Comment. Dr. Burns, I'm going to ask Ms. Shelley Brown a question. Could you synthesize a statement of what we've accomplished and moved forward to distribute to all of us? Because I don't know about y'all, but I'm not getting tons and tons of questions, but a few. And the more we're around in the community, and I think the value of us all having the same thing to say in the same way just makes it stronger for us. So if you could do that, synthesize it and communicate that with us, I know it would help me.
And I would assume you would be okay with
Good idea.
Ms. Brown putting something out after this meeting
Oh,
regarding where
absolutely.
you are, right?
Absolutely,
Copy
yeah.
that with you guys.
The more we can communicate openness and transparency, the better off we are.
Discussion question real fast.
Yeah.
John?
If
I
you
was
must.
just gonna
Yes,
ask, do
yes.
you have any advice for the board?
If you get media questions or things like that, please forward them to us. I think last time we were, forwarded WFAA and the Dallas Morning News, and they contacted us, and we certainly handled those inquiries. But the best thing to do is say, hey, we've retained TASB, and, you know, we're on board with them, and if you have any questions, you certainly can contact them, and they can field your, you know,
Thank you.
respond
That's a
to you.
good point to make. Thank you for saying
If
that.
by chance you should be, because you're in the search window now officially, if you were to be contacted by an applicant, and it happens, internally or outside the district, would you remind them that you're not able to discuss this with anyone? So that's just a thought, because some people get pretty aggressive. Yes, mhm.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Good point. Any questions that you might have for us, other than,
Any other questions, board members?
How do you protect the confidentiality of the applicants if we're getting information via email? So,
once you receive the information, well, you're going to sign a confidentiality agreement, and everything that's between TASB and you remains confidential. It's not something that, you know, we're not saying you can't just go out and tell people who's applied. And so it remains between us. Am I answering your question correctly?
yes, I'm a little bit concerned because I'm still getting familiar with the legalities of all of this and I guess yes, there we go, open records request.
Subject to open records if you email us the data.
That's a good question. No, it is not, because we own the information. It's TASB's information, and we own it. We're just showing you as a third-party member that you're receiving that, and we are not open to the open records request because we're a nonprofit organization. We're not a public organization.
Yeah, and to give you some, I guess, additional comfort level, if we were to get an information request, we go through our council, and our council will make it privileged and respond accordingly. So they can't just have it because they asked for it, right? We
Okay.
have a process on our end, TASB has a process on their end to keep high confidentiality with it, so.
Do you think before you leave town, you could help us come up with a date for the live meetings? So after this, if we could sit down and come up with what might be a good day of the week that doesn't conflict with a board meeting, or, not that we're going to go, but that our audiences might want to go, so.
Yeah, I would say, guys, once y'all kind of get some dates.
Put your head-
Ms. Brown
yeah.
can kind of say, this is a good date with the district calendar, works well, we don't have any other activities, big activities planned that night, so that you'll know when is
Yeah.
a good date for the community. Because we obviously have a lot of events happening in the spring.
Right.
With track, baseball, softball, and all that stuff. So we'll find a good date. Wednesday, I'm going to tell you, is probably the best date, not always, but that might be one that we find where we have the fewer activities scheduled, so.
Yeah, I think it's wise to check your master calendar, no conflicts. And again, choice is really good because it is very busy, and it's going to be hard to find a date that doesn't conflict, but at least that community member has another opportunity. But we can work with your district. That's what we're going to get busy on right now, is nailing down those dates for you all. The profile meetings, the visits with you all, we'll have to set those up. And then, the interview dates, let's confirm those as well. So I don't know that we can do that now, but we'll be busy working with your staff and Dr. Burns to do that, so that you don't have to worry about it.
Ms. Glenn?
The community dates work for me. Not community dates, the interview dates work for me.
Yeah, that's perfect.
I'll have to check my calendar.
Angela, do you have a copy of this? You do? Okay. So right now, according to this, everybody's calendar syncs up with the interview dates that Butch and Robert gave us. Do you
I
wanna-
can tell.
We'll put that, why don't we get that back out again to you in our Monday correspondence, just to firm it up? So, or is there a conflict with your date?
Or do a doodle poll.
Or we could do a doodle poll with it, see? You want her to do a doodle poll on all the dates on this calendar?
Yeah, that would be great.
To kind of just see and we know,
April 23rd is,
you get us confirmation?
April 23rd is the candidate forum here in the ad building, PTA forum. Yeah.
But we won't interview in this room.
You might have a candidate that has to
have
be in
some.
the forum.
I know, I understand.
Maybe
Butch
one.
and Robert, those 3 dates you have there, are those a little flexible? Could you move off of the 23rd if possible, do. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Do Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday as opposed to Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday?
Sure, that, Dr. Burns, that just involves the board. It doesn't affect us. So whatever works well for you, it works well for us.
Would that
We can
be-
certainly-
Tuesday, Wednesday,
That
Thursday
works
looks
for
good.
me.
Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday looks good to me.
So really, you're going 24, 25, 26.
Okay.
Yeah,
Okay.
okay,
Yes.
So eliminate the 23rd.
yeah.
Okay.
So you'd have
We'll send
24,
you a
25,
more-
26.
Yeah, we'll send you a more firm than schedule, including the profile sessions when we determine those.
Anything else, board members?
I was just going to thank y'all for how prepared you've been, and thank you for making this on short notice.
Thank you, we're excited, we appreciate that.
Absolutely. Very excited.
We're excited to have y'all with us. Very
Thank you.
much so. Thank you. Not seeing or hearing any other comments. It is 12:04 PM, and we are adjourned.